we were at a little bit earlier, but in a place that particular lugger or drainage line or river system empties into. I suppose you could say, the biggest lugger in the Mara Triangle, which of course would be the Mara River. I wanted to come and investigate and see how full it's looking after all of the rain that we've had. And, you know, logically, it is looking a great deal fuller. Is fuller a word? More full? Oh, goodness. Fuller? Fuller. Oh, no. Let's just say there's more water in it than there was yesterday. How about we go with that? And there we go. There's a log floating down, looking for all the world like a crocodile, potentially. And it really is flowing. It's flowing particularly strongly. Stronger, one might say, than it was yesterday. And I wanted to come and investigate and just have a look. And, of course, it's always a fantastic spot. This particular area is known as a cul-de-sac crossing. And it is the regular haunt of both the Paradise Pride and, of course, the musketeer male lions. So Scarface and his cohorts. No sign of them this morning, but I'm going to keep checking. Of course, coming down to the river, you can always find birds or their closest relatives. Well, semi-closest relatives, reptiles. And in this case, a dinosaur reptile. This is the massive male crocodile that lives in Cul-de-sac Crossing. I wanted to see whether or not he was out on the banks basking, but I think it's still a little bit chilly. So the discussion that we were having earlier about the fact that water, of course, so this is one of the areas where, of course, the poor wildebeest recklessly throw themselves into the water and then have to brave the crocodiles, the current, and then, of course, each other as well as they clamber their way up the opposite banks. So really, this is quite a traumatic crossing, in my experience. So that, of course, on the one side, on the opposite side of the bank, there's that nice, smooth entrance into the river. It's coming out again. That's the problem. So when the wildebeest come from that side, from the National Reserve, that's on the opposite side, they then have to get up these banks here. And I remember particularly a crossing that Steph was narrating, and I happened to be sitting with him in the studio. It was devastating to watch as they climbed on top of each other, and a lot of them ended up just being crushed under the sheer mass of this movement. I often found those crossings very difficult to watch, whether it was on our cameras or whether it was in real life. At the same time, it does throw into sharp relief the realities that the animals face out here. But no birds. Everything's very quiet. Just one crocodile. One very lazy crocodile. Don't forget, #SafariLive on Twitter is how you can get hold of us if you'd like to comment or have any of your questions answered. Shall we carry on, Adrian? Should we see if the Paradise Pride or the Musketeers are maybe at one of the other crossings? I usually hear a rumour before I get to this point, and I haven't heard anything. But perhaps we'll be fortunate and they'll pop out. I'm keeping a fair distance from the edge of the bank because I nearly skidded into the river. Now, Erica, you want to... Sorry, just quickly... Let's not skid into river. Just quickly, one last look at the crocodile to answer Erica's question. Now, Erica's wondering how long I think that crocodile is. Oof. From what I've seen of him when he's out on the bank, I'm pretty sure it is him. And looking at him now, I would say that he is probably just under 4 meters. He's definitely... Yeah, just over 3. Let's say just over 3 meters. So over 9 feet long. An absolutely massive animal. If I had to guess at how much he'd weigh, I'd put him probably on 250 kilograms at a guess. He certainly is a giant of the Mara River. We get some seriously large crocodiles here. As yet, we haven't seen that many big crocs at Chitwa Dam, but let's go and find out whether any have taken residence there.
Right, well, we are sitting here at Chitwa Dam, looking for interesting things. We can see herds of impala. I'm not sure which picture you're looking at now, but we've got herds of impala with the drone. You may just be looking at me. What are you looking at? No idea. Okay, well, I'm going to assume... Oh, right, the drone is not working. Signal is down. All right, so we well, I tell you what, why don't you hover it and show us where the drone is? There we go. There you can see the drone and some impalas, and the drone is just hovering above them there, doing its level best to try and create some kind of a picture, which it is doing very nicely. It's just not getting to you, I'm afraid. A couple of technical glitches there. And then we've got the hippopotami, and the heat is starting to build quite strongly now. I had one alarm call, sounded like a kudu or a nyala behind the dam wall here, so I will go down there and have a look and see if Hosana isn't perhaps lurking around there somewhere. And there's a magnificent hippopotamus. Now, if you ever come to Africa and ever spend your time in a place like this, the best thing to do at this time of the day is to have your breakfast, buy a water hole like this, then sit down with a good book, pair of binoculars, comfortable chair at the water's edge, and just watch what transpires during the course of the day, because so many interesting little things will come down to a water hole. Lots of herds of animals, obviously birds, all the time, and the interesting antics of the hippos and the geese and the knob-billed ducks, etc. Fascinating stuff. Paula, you're wondering about the rarest animal in our area. Well, I suppose the rarest animal, excluding some of the insect species, would be a wild dog. The African wild dog is pretty rare. We don't often see them at all. What else would be very rare? I mean, some animals occur here very seldom, but they aren't necessarily rare in the world. I'm trying to think of an example of one now. I suppose sometimes you might see something like a sharpsgrijsbok, which is a sort of small antelope like a steenbok. You might see that here once in a while, or a reedbuck. Neither of them are rare. Neither of them are endangered, but because the habitat isn't quite right here, you'd seldom see them. So those are two interesting ones that might be common elsewhere, but not very common here. And of course, then there are lots of rare birds that you might find in a place like this. Something like a booted eagle wouldn't be common. But in terms of mammals, I suppose it would be the African wild dog. They are rare and endangered. There goes the hippopotamus. All right, shall we drive slowly on down the dam wall and see if there isn't a sight of a crocodile, the likes of which Jamie was talking. There are two of them that seem to live here. And Scarlett, you're wondering how long these hippopotami... Oh, there's a baby hippo. How long the hippos stay underwater. Scarlett, they'll tell you for up to 8 minutes. I've never seen anything close to that. The longest I've seen a hippo under the water was about 2 minutes. But normally I would say it's about 20 seconds or so, often up to a minute, but the most I've seen is about 2 minutes. You can count if you like. 3, 4, 5, 6 chimpanzee, 7 chimpanzee, 8 chimpanzee, 9. That's a different one, isn't it? We're on 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, fascinating, 19, 19, 20, 21, there it is, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, well, that one's the same one that came up, so that was only under for 10 seconds. Okay, so 10 seconds at a time, not very much. Hello, Molly. Well, territorial behavior in most animals fairly similar out here. You say, how do they let us know that they are, or that this is their territory? They have the disturbing habit of spraying their dung. So what they do is they will begin the deposit of dung, and then they will flap their tails from side to side, swishing them, and dung will spray all over the place. and that's basically how they do it. And that's in the water, both females and males will do it, but out of the water during the evening, you'll find it's only males that spray their dung. There's a leopard. Let's go and look at the leopard. I was correct about the call of the Nyala or the Kudu. Very kindly we've been told just down here there is a leopard. How wonderful. He's come up from there. I don't know who he is, but these chaps over here from Nkoro have just spotted him. I think he's just inside here. Seb, how much time have you got left on the drone? So we can leave him hovering there, can we?
Yeah, we can for a bit longer, yeah.
This is very exciting. I'm 99% sure it is Hosana. Oops, I've gone too far. Reverse. Paul Seb is now operating the drone and the camera at the same time. Oh well, that's a small piece of the dam wall that is now on the floor. Never mind about that. There's a sticky outy bit on the on the bull bar here. I'll have to replace that. How very, very embarrassing. If Brentley Smith had seen that, I'd never hear the end of it. I don't know where this leopard is. He's just in this very thick bush here. Let's just get up here. We have to do some serious maneuvering. I was about to drive over and tell this fellow I've just heard some alarm calling. It's very, very thick in here, but we will try and at least get some kind of a view. All these people are now not looking for their leopard anymore. They're fascinated by the sight of this drone pilot and the camera on the back of this car. Okay, apparently our signal is not great. We're going to leave you briefly and you can go back to the lions. We'll try and find this leopard.
Alright everybody, the oxpecker sounds that we heard amounted to nothing, and it's getting very, very warm out here. Oh look, that's how you hug yourself. Oh, shame. So this will probably be our last segment that we're going to do with the Nkuhumas for this morning, because everybody is very, very lazy. I hear that James Hendry is causing havoc over on Chitwa, and I'm wondering which leopard he's found. I would assume if he's over there, it's possibly Hosana, although I'm very keen to see Kachava, so I'm hoping that maybe she'll pop up at some point. Our Nkuhumas are having a nice, nice, nice nap. Michael, you're saying that there are 2 sub-adults here that are nearly 2. Would they participate in the hunt? Most definitely, Michael, especially if they're female. They'll definitely participate in the hunt. That's a good age for them to be... oh, I'm just going to get some spider webs away. Hold on one sec.
Thank you.
There we are. It's a good age for them to be working their muscles and functioning properly and really starting to hone their skills. And it also means that they're going to be able to participate without ruining anything too much. These lionesses are making me want to take a nap. Now, when we head off from here, which will be shortly, I think we're going to go look for elephants because it's warmed up enough and we're close to some water bodies that we might just get some nice elephant scenes for all of you. These lions sleep for about 16 to 20 hours a day. With very slim bellies like now, I don't think these lionesses will sleep for that long today. But with this type of heat that's going to come through, it's possible that they might get around that number. Very lazy. But also, I think if we were covered in that amount of fur and couldn't sweat properly, we would also probably be lazy conserving our energy. Now, we talked about a leadwood tree today, we've seen the lions, and we've been chatting about elephants, all of which are dominant species within an ecosystem and actually help dictate what happens in the rest of the ecosystem here. Just as a little side conversation for all of us. Without, say, big trees like that leadwood tree, or big trees like jackalberry trees, or even this tambweti tree that's there, just the tall one that's in the background there, the ecosystem would look very different. And then without the interplay with the elephants, the ecosystem again would look very different. And without the lions doing their job as the largest predator out here, everything again would be completely different. And I've just been sitting here and pondering this a little bit, how amazing it is that all of those things that we talk about and the little things and the big things that we show you have to work hand in hand to make everything else function on a level that allows not only them to be here, but also for us to be here. And it's just one of those days. It's blue skies with puffy clouds and warm sunlight coming in. It's a pondering type of morning. All right, everybody. Lazy lions, I love them. But we had some action, we had some grooming, we had some good conversation. I think it's time. I think it's time to head off. And I think let's go up to Jamie, who's with a very large aquatic mammal who also has amazing parts in the ecosystems wherever they happen to be. And let's see what she wants to share with you with that good big raft she has.
A couple of very large aquatic mammals in the form of the pod of hippos that lives at Main Crossing. Now, I have a question for all of you, and it's a bizarre thought. Do you think hippos enjoy it when the river gets really nice and full like this? Because it's basically like being in a jacuzzi for them, or a tidal pool. And I've been sitting watching them, and they've been far more playful than they usually are at this time of the morning, when they're sort of all lumped together in a little part of the river. Obviously, there's the space factor. And I suppose for the littler hippos, perhaps battling against the current is more tricky. And I mean, if we look a little bit to the left, you can actually, I think this is the most water I've ever seen flowing down this river. In the dry season, because I keep harping on about this, but I've been told January is the driest month. Look at the rapids. I mean, this is where all of the zebra and the wildebeest went across at Main Crossing. I wonder if it's like being in a jacuzzi for the hippos. Be like having a massage, going to the spa jets or something like that. Now, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. Was it Dilly Lily? Did I get that correct? Or have I just rhymed words? Which is entirely possible. Dilly Lily. Okay, I did get it right. Dilly Lily. Now, Dilly Lily would like to know if there's any water conditions that could impact the health of a hippopotamus. Yes, absolutely. This is going to sound really obvious, but let's start with the obvious. Low water conditions. And that doesn't mean no water at all. It means as the rivers dry up in dry seasons, then space becomes reduced. And as a result, there is a great deal of fighting for space and for access to what limited water remains. And as a result, the older or the younger males in particular are the ones that are harshly impacted. Pollution as well, of course. Plastic. It applies just as much as it does in the ocean. Obviously, there's a massive problem with plastic in the ocean. The same would apply for hippos. While it's unlikely to happen, they could potentially swallow it. Pollution, chemical spills, they are sensitive creatures. Their skin is particularly sensitive, so a change in the sort of the not necessarily pH levels of the water, but in terms of toxin contents, it could have a negative effect on their skins. So there's numerous potential factors, and actually a proper flood, while a hippo is unlikely to drown, there are recorded cases of young hippos being washed away, because of course a hippo cannot swim. Well, we always say that. They are pretty much at home in the water, obviously, so it depends how you define swimming, but they can't sort of do the doggy paddle and stay at the surface. They have to use their buoyancy, and they usually walk along the bottom of the water. In the sort of reverse of that question, a hippopotamus does an enormous amount for the health of the water ecosystems. So they keep river pathways and waterhole pathways free of debris and vegetation because they walk along the bottom. So they keep things well churned up and allow water to flow naturally. They also, of course, because they defecate in the water, they add to the... Well, there's a lot of articles that suggest that the nutrients that they add to a water system are particularly beneficial. So that's the sort of the flip side of that, how hippos actually benefit the water in which they live. Lots of hippopotamus. I'm not sure if you can hear that with the rush of the water. They're all chatting to each other. Absolutely, Irene. So Irene is watching the yawn from one of the hippos. Big, there we go. Nicely done. A little bit of a demonstration from a young hippo there. Irene saying, yikes, those mouths are enormous. The gape of a hippo is a terrifying thing. I've been in a few more terrifying moments of my life. I have been in the position to look straight into a hippo's yawning mouth, and it is terrifying to witness. So they are capable of essentially biting most animals in half. And I know too many people who have been very seriously injured by hippos to not take them seriously. They just look so, when they're in a state like this, they just look so harmless, don't they? Happy hippo. I mean, how's that one resting its head on the other one's back? It looks like it's smiling. A sweet-looking animal that is very easy to underestimate, much like the beautiful leopards that we get to see in the wilderness, who also should not be underestimated.
This leopard is now stalking something. I don't know what he's stalking. I haven't seen it. He's just suddenly got up. It is our friend Hosana. He's got some bad ticks on the back of his ears. But he just got up and wandered up through here. There are squirrels alarm calling. I thought he'd seen something worth eating. You can see he's still in his hunched posture. His shoulders hunched down. Maybe he's going to go for another angle, or maybe he's decided it's not worthwhile. I don't think he saw anything. I think he probably just heard it. There we go. Sorry, I can't move the vehicle at this stage, everyone. We're sort of perched on a precipice. What you're seeing there is a piece of drone in your picture. Sorry about that. He now looks like he's going to have a snack on some of the tourists that are sitting here, but he's not really. He wouldn't do that. Oh, he's a magnificent fellow, isn't he? Now, where is he going to go is the big question. Monique, you say he looks a bit like he's limping. No, I don't think he's limping at all, Monique. I think he's fine. I don't think he's limping at all. All right, well, let's follow him round. Absolutely. I'm just trying to think if we should go around that way or wait. I think let's go around the other way. We won't follow him. We'll go around and try and pick him up from the other side. Stanley, you say, what's the bonnet? I mentioned it when I made a small bloops at the dam wall. The bonnet, Stanley, is what you'd call a hood. We're going to pop the hood. It's what we call the front of the car. The same way as we call what you would call a trunk, a boot. Okay. A bonnet, of course, could also mean a hat. But none of us are wearing bonnets on our heads this evening. This evening. It's this morning, isn't it? It's still this morning. It's going to get a little bit bumpy. There's the leopard. going down into his favourite little spot. This is the first time I've ever seen him here in Hosana's haunt. He's stalking something. He's adopted the stalk position. Let's just try and get through here. He's just nipping down into the drainage system here. There's a pond, beautiful pond in here. I'm not sure how strong our signal's going to be. He spotted something. There he is.
Sorry about that little gremlin that sent you flying through the air over to me, but I'm happy to have you all back. We went past the dam in front of Djuma. No elephants, so we're now pottering around. I want to go see if maybe we can find some zebras up here in the open areas, and then if we can pick up the tracks of the very large herd that moved through where we were looking for Chandi, and see what we can do with those for this morning. But yeah, then again, just sort of enjoying this blue sky and the heat that we were feeling with the lions. You don't feel as you're driving along because there's a nice little breeze, so it's making it quite a pleasant morning indeed. Davi's enjoying an apple in the back. He's already had his kiwi for the day. We bring little snacks with us from time to time. I like a banana, but I didn't bring a banana this morning. It's a little bit too early for me to eat. Maybe this afternoon. And it's good fruiting season here. Oh, the mangoes are so good right now. Ginny, you're curious to know, do any of the animals suffer from heat stroke? Now, Ginny, if they were to suffer from heat stroke, it would have to do with the fact that they're moving their bodies past their exertion limits in the heat of the day, which most of them are smart enough not to do. The only heat stroke type victim I've ever seen was with a wild dog that had gotten rabies, and obviously the rabies changes the brain chemistry, and he was doing behavior that is not normal, and part of that was in 45 degrees Celsius weather and running around, and that definitely affected him. But in general, no, they're fine. They know exactly what they need to do to not get sick that way. We as humans don't listen to ourselves. So something that we do as guides is our and I mean our cam ops will do the same thing because we're stuck together on the car. So we get up early in the morning and we function until it's too hot, and then we siesta in the day, and then we go out in the afternoon as it's warm and then cooling down. And that's what the animals do. And then obviously some of them move throughout the night, and that allows you to function optimally without getting things like heat stroke and without suffering any body issues with extreme heat temperatures. But if you're not as lucky as we are to have the type of work that we have, and you have to, oh hello wildebeest, and monkeys. Excuse me. Let's try this rather. And that will be nice. So the monkeys are climbing up and around in the shades of these trees here. And then our wildebeests are just resting in the shade, again using the shade so that they can move around and or ruminate like the wildebeests are doing without overexerting themselves. And I was just saying that for us as humans, we tend to have things like air conditioning, and we do other things to try and outcompete the heat. But then I've got friends that still go running at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's 40 degrees out. So, and then they have to drink a lot of water. So I think we push ourselves past points where other animals are going, yeah, that's a silly mammal. All right, I believe Hosana is sitting very pretty with Mr. James Hendry over at Chitwa Dam. So let's head on over to him because it is Feline Friday and cats are needed.
Okay, I believe we're live, everybody. Here we are. Hosana staying in the same place. Look at the wonderful place he's found himself to sit. I pretended to be him sitting in exactly that position during our TV shows. And I'm so pleased that he and I are of one mind. Now, You were talking about heat stroke earlier with Noel. I find it a really fascinating subject. Remember that as a human being, we are superbly designed to avoid heat stroke in the heat of the African sun, whereas animals like this magnificent fellow in front of us must go and seek the shade in the heat of the day. And it's a really fascinating thing. If you really study human physiology and our design, there is a school of thought that reckons one of the reasons we stand upright on 2 feet is to avoid overheating, basically. It allows us to move around in the middle of the day with a very small proportion of our body exposed to the sun. Because if you stand on all fours, obviously you've got a greater surface area exposed to the sun's rays, whereas on 2 feet, that is not the case. And that's why human beings can run such enormous distances compared with any other animals. We may do it slowly, but there are very, very few animals in the world that can run the distances we do. And I don't mean that of everybody. Of course, a lot of us don't run very far at all. Yes, DMC, they scratch for the same reasons that you and I scratch. They scratch when they feel itchy, and having a tick attached to your skin and sucking your blood will inevitably result in things feeling quite itchy, and so that is why he's scratching. There are lots of flies as well, and possibly the various other skin parasites. He seems to be very focused on one area. Hello, fellow. Ooh, what's he heard? DMV, I don't know the answer to that. You say, how long will the ticks last? Basically what happens is that, yes, they will come off. Those ones there are females that are the ones that you can see on him. And when they fill up, when they are full, and I don't know how long that takes, they will drop off. They will basically drop off, lay their eggs and die. And Denise, I'm not sure how... too many tick bites will definitely make them sick. Remember that everything out here is doing its level best, basically, to avoid the effects of parasites. There are hundreds of parasites in that animal, in the same way that there are hundreds of parasites in you, that your body is constantly fighting off. Now, if the animal is weak, hasn't eaten properly, has some other kind of infection, then those parasites are going to affect him far worse than if he was in good health. It's exactly the same as if you're a human being. Now, I can't move this car without losing signal, so I'm going to suggest we link away from here, if you don't mind, because I don't want to lose signal and have to crash cut away. And as I'm saying this, Rebecca is furiously talking to other people and saying, can I come to you? Could we perhaps come to you? I'm saying, well, yes, we can. And so what we're going to do is head across to Noel, who is on quarantine clearings. Goodbye.
Hi everyone, so we just had a really great sighting of a common cuckoo. This cuckoo that's up at the top here. Sorry, let me just, there, now you can see it a little bit better. It actually sat out in the open for us for about a minute, which it never really does. And I have not seen a common cuckoo in the past year and a half. So I'm really, really, really excited about it. You can confuse it a bit with the African cuckoo, which just is a little bit farther down here. But the African cuckoo, that gray underneath the breast, comes a bit farther down. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh, African cuckoo. And then Davi and I were looking at the book and we're like, no, there's too much white on the breast and a little bit more of the vertical striping. So it was definitely common cuckoo. Super, super exciting. I'm sorry that it flew off and we couldn't show you, but you get to see it in the book and hear me talk about it. So it's nice weather for birds. So I think as we meander around this side, we might do a little bit of birding. Now, I have two friends that I work with, not here, but I've worked with other places, and they fight. One is a big tree guy and one's a big bird guy. The tree guy says that the birds are there to help disperse seeds to grow more trees, and the bird guy says the trees are only here for the birds to have nesting sites. And I think about this sometimes as I drive along, because it's like the chicken and the egg thing, which came first. You can't have trees without birds, you can't have birds without trees for the most part. So they are definitely hand in hand, and you need both of them. Now, speaking of birds and trees, please don't fly away, and of course you're going to fly away. They do that, birds. They fly, apparently. There were some beautiful starlings, and the colorations, we're actually going to get it now. The colorations, because of the way that the sun is absolutely spectacular. So it looked like some Burchell starlings, and you're getting that iridescence nicely right now. You see that? The blue mixed with the black and a little bit of green. Sometimes they even look purple. So for any of our new viewers out there, iridescence on a bird basically means that there are parts of the feather that are almost see-through, and then those parts lie over each other, and then the light waves hit at different angles, creating different colorations. Oh, and they're going to come back into the tree we originally saw them, up here at the top. Absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful Burchell starling, dark eye, longer tail. We also get the greater blue-eared here, and the Cape Glossy. Will have a shorter tail, and then the greater blue-eared has a yellow ring around the eye, and the Cape Glossy has an orange. Here comes the other ones. Now these are tree nesters, and I've seen Cape Glossy starlings and Burchell starlings, this one being the Burchells that we're looking at, fighting over nesting spots. And I've watched the Burchells bring in all this nesting material, fight off the Cape Glossy, fly away to get more nesting material, and then the Cape Glossy goes in and takes out all that nesting material and then brings its own, and they've done that on and off for quite a while. I've also seen them chasing away predators from areas, predatory birds meaning. And I've also seen them get very upset when there's leopards around. Now, I don't know if we'll be able to get it, but there's a vulture high up in the sky, directly behind where those starlings were sitting. It's just flying towards our 12 o'clock off the top of the tree. It's like a little black speck. We might just be, and it's moving more to the right, through the middle of these clouds now, and then it's going to circle around on the thermal, and then come down. I think that it's just a bit too far off. I was chatting, Davi, I think it was with you, I was chatting with you the other day about how they found a white-backed vulture up at 37,000 feet where the Boeings are. And that is very, very far. Now, the reason why vultures can fly up that high, look, it's not normal for them to be up that high, but they can get up that high. And one of the reasons is they've got a very insulated, downy feather. There's a special type of vulture called a lammergeier, a bearded vulture, that is known to be at extremely high altitudes, and they'll be one of the last ones to kill. They'll go down and grab a bone and then fly high up and then drop it because they want the marrow that's in the side of the bone. They're a specialist feeder off those carcasses. That's one bird I have, there's many birds I haven't seen, but that's one of the birds I haven't seen, which I really want to see. And those lammergeiers have an even more defined and intricate downy layer so that they can get a little bit higher than some other vulture species. Okay, well, let's see what else we can find as we meander about. And I think we'll go back to James while we're bumbling about, because I think James is the lucky leopard man of today, and he's got Hosana again.
I am the lucky leopard man of today. We're sitting very close to Hosana now. He is sitting next to his pond. Just listening and thinking, pondering his existence. Madison, I wish I could answer your question. I'm afraid I have absolutely no idea, but I'm fairly sure that somebody in the Twitterverse will. Very good question about whether or not leopards can get heartworm from mosquitoes, and I don't know. I'm really not sure. I think you'll find that although these animals are covered in parasites and have got parasites all over them and inside them, they are perfectly capable of coping with them. So, I mean, were this leopard to have something like heartworm from mosquitoes, I think it would be absolutely fine. He'd be capable of coping with it. It's often when you introduce foreign sort of pathogens to an area that... I'm just asking if these people can see. I think they can see. It's often if you introduce foreign pathogens into an area or an animal into an area that is different that, they will get sick. Classic example from humans would be the introduction of smallpox, for example, or yellow fever to Africa, smallpox specifically, which wiped out hundreds of thousands, I think. And it was introduced by European settlers who had, by then, I think, developed, I don't think they had a vaccine yet, did they? They certainly had a certain amount of natural immunity to it. And while the Europeans who landed in Africa were smitten by the diseases here, to which the local people had resistance, so the other way was true as well. And it's exactly the same with these animals. And because they don't move out of these areas much, or into different areas, you find they probably cope with disease much better than we do, and also why they don't need the sort of medical care that we do. And you combine that with the fact that they eat what they were designed to eat. They don't have any of the lifestyle diseases that we do, diabetes and neurological disorders and all manner of different kinds of horrible cancers and that sort of thing, most of which I think will eventually be put down to genetics triggered by poor lifestyle. Dale, you said they get the same diseases as we do from ticks. Well, they get, I guess, something, certainly, it would be the same, what is it? It's not a virus, it's the same bacterium, it's not even a bacterium, it's something else. Same parasite would be, put into the bloodstream by the ticks, but they'll just have a better immunity to it. But essentially, yes, it is the same thing. It's rickettsia or various different versions thereof. And in animals, we call it biliary, for example. Horses and domestic dogs and cats can get biliary, which can kill them from ticks. But you struggle to find a wild animal like this, which would get biliary. He is now fast asleep and does not look like he's going anywhere for some time. There we go. Thank you, Lily. You say, you say animals can get heartworm from mosquitoes, but much more likely in areas where they're in close proximity with human beings, so in zoos, for example. Thank you very much for that. I'm afraid I know absolutely nothing about heartworm whatsoever. I'll have to try and go and find out about it. Hello, Carol. You're in Florida. You're a new viewer, or a newish viewer, and you say, is this the leopard with the baby? There are two reasons why this leopard can't have a baby. The first is that he's male, and so he couldn't, well, I suppose he could have produced a baby, which brings me to the second part of why he doesn't have a baby yet. He's only 2. And while I suppose technically it might almost be possible for him to father a child, he's much too young to be able to dominate any sort of mating opportunity in this area just yet. So, Carol, you're talking about Thandi, who is a female leopard, and she, if you saw them next to each other, Carol, you'd very easily recognize the female versus the male. The male is much bigger. Even at 2 years old, he's bigger than an adult female. And Thandi is, in fact, his sister. She's much older than he is, but she is his sister nevertheless. Their mother was the same, their father different. Where he shall remain, I suspect, for most of the rest of the day. Ooh! Now, Scarlett, you are asking a question. You say, is Hosana my favourite leopard? Well, before I answer that, Scarlett, before when was it? Before I went to the Masai Mara, my favourite leopard was Shongile. And Shongile was Hosana's sister, and she was my favourite because we had some wonderful experiences with her on foot. And so I suppose I should be transferring my affections to Hosana, but while I do enjoy him very much, I'm going to call Tamba my favourite leopard at the moment. So Tamba is a 20-month-old male, And I like him, I don't know why I like him because of this, but I like him because he has such a very serious face. He takes life extremely seriously. One gets the impression that Hosana takes his life in a much more frivolous fashion. He often goes seeking company. Now, this is not to say I don't like him at all. I really do enjoy him very, very much. Alrighty, I believe that there is a lot of jealousy from the Mara on the number of leopard sightings we've had of late. Let's head across to Jamie and find out if she perhaps has a favourite leopard over there.
Terrible, terrible jealousy. Terrible. We are positively green with it. Of course, the big chief spending time with our little chief. It's a wonderful thing. I love little Hosana. Big Hosana now. I will say I guessed James's favourite, his new favourite. Ask Adrian. I said Tumba before Rebecca told me that James had said Tumba, so I nailed that one. My favourite leopard is still Tundi. It will continue to be Tundi. I find it hard to imagine how she could ever be replaced. I really enjoy her. The sheer grumpiness of her day-to-day demeanour. She's not grumpy. She's got very firm boundaries, and she is not afraid to reinforce those boundaries. I've also seen her with 3 adult male impala kills at one time, all in trees. Well, 2 of them were in a tree. 1 was on the ground. That's still impressive for a leopard that probably weighs maybe 40 kilograms. And I've heard of her killing an adult female waterbuck. And when Tumba was just this big, same size as her little fluff ball now, I saw her save the life of those 2 cubs, Tumba and his sibling, from baboons. So Tundi for me is firmly cemented in my heart. To have a favourite leopard in the Mara, I would have to see leopards on a slightly more regular basis. I have a favourite cheetah though. Speaking of envy, I know they've had 1 cheetah on Djuma recently, but I do have a favourite cheetah of the Mara, and that remains Imani, which means faith. Imani is my favourite, and she's my favourite based purely on one sighting that I had with her where she caught a rock and then looked at me very triumphantly. It was hilarious. She's a proper character. Well, I feel she's a character. I also really like Malika. So you see, we're in a position where we can have favourite cheetah, but I definitely don't have a favourite leopard. I've seen about 5. The big male around here, the one at the other day at the camp, who was gone in 2 seconds. The Majia Chafu female is a lovely female, but I've only ever seen her a couple of times. Sigh. Leopard envy and cheetah triumph. Let's head across to Brent to find out if he has a favourite leopard of the Mara and if he has a favourite cheetah.
Well, I do have a favourite leopard, and it was the same as James's before she disappeared. It was definitely Shongile, was my favourite leopard in the sands. Favourite cheetah in the Mara? Oof, that's a difficult one. I really like Malika's 2 boys, and Malika and also Imani's 2 girls. I think those are my favourite cheetah. Now, I know James was discussing heartworm with you earlier. I thought it was heartwater. Now, heartwater is a tick-borne disease that affects ruminants, bovids. Most wildlife are immune to it, but it is got a very high mortality rate in cattle. But heartworm, is quite an interesting one. So what a lot of people refer to as heartworm isn't always the same species. There are many different species of it. It is a filarial parasite, so there are thousands of different filarials, and heartworm is generally in canids, dogs, jackals, coyotes, foxes, that type of thing. It can sometimes spread into humans, but although it does sometimes go into the heart, it's more common in the lungs, in the pulmonary system. Now, I've actually had a form of heartworm before in my lungs, so those filarial parasites are very common in the rainforests of Africa and South America. There's different types of assay, so they're often referred to as a general heartworm, but there's specific species that target the eye. I've actually seen guys in Gabon with multiple little of these worms crawling around in their eyes. It's pretty darn freaky. And once that's got into your eye, it can only be removed surgically, because if you take the normal deworming medicine that kills the filarial parasites, it dies inside your eye, and then it actually rots and causes blindness. So quite a bad one. But yeah, so there's actually quite a lot of different worms that are referred to as heartworm. They're all filarial worms, and they are different types are transmitted by different insects. So mosquitoes transmit quite a few different types of filarial worms, and also certain biting flies, certain horsefly species also transmit that filarial worm into both wild animals and to people. So filarial worms in the rainforests are very common. They affect gorillas, chimpanzees, river hogs, leopard, honey badger, elephant even. So there are lots of different of those type of worms that infect things. They're quite gross, I won't lie. Now, I wonder where Jamie's lions from this morning disappeared to. So we're going to see if we can find them on the way up the hill. But let's zoot on over to Noelle all the way back on Djuma to see what she's up to next.
Cheers, Brent. We found piglets. Little baby pigs. So we have a sounder of warthog this morning. So the little babies are not quite sure what to do with our vehicle. They're moving about, but their mother, who's just to the right-hand side, seems relatively relaxed. She's just basically feeding. She's got a very, very full udder at the moment, so I'm sure she's going to nurse those piglets at some point. And she's just doing her thing, and the piglets are basically going, "Mom, is it okay? Do we stay? Do we go? What do we do?" And then a bird just scared them. They're very cute. They're going to go behind that termite mound a bit. Okay, so this heartworm in wildlife question is a really interesting one. I know Brent went into it a little bit, but I quickly just asked a friend of mine who grew up doing wildlife vet work with his dad in Kruger Park, and he says that he can't recall heartworm ever being something that they look for in, say, lions or wildlife species like that. And then he's saying he can't remember too much more than that, but if it was something that they needed to look for, it would have been something that they would have dissected and or had to treat. So in my head, I have a feeling that anything that is a domesticated animal that is close to large populations of those mosquitoes that do give heartworm will be in areas where there's, sorry, I've got something bit me. I'm being attacked by mosquitoes as we're talking about mosquitoes. There's a mosquito bite. Daytime mosquitoes, thank you very much. So I think it has more to do with that. If I had to pick an African wildlife species that would I would think in my head would get heartworm, would be the African wild dog. Being able to get as much as domesticated dogs disease-wise, that would be the only one, but I would find it rare and odd from what I do know for it to happen. So that's my little take on the whole scenario. We're still looking for elephants, which we haven't found. And I'm hoping maybe as we check down here, we might get a glimpse of a couple. Naomi, you're asking if there's any parasites that the guides need to be aware of or wary of. Sorry, I'm just going to see if we can get these piglets one last time. Naomi, we have to be careful of malaria. That's one. And then Balhasia, if you go swimming in certain areas, you'd have to be careful of. Tapeworm. You would definitely have to be careful of tapeworm. And then I have friends who give their kids heart or worm medicine. It's something I didn't grow up with that, but it's something that happens here. So that would be my other thoughts. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I'm actually usually quite good with all of these disease things, and today my brain is going, no, but you've been talking about ecology. I'm not in my parasite thoughts. I'm not quite sure. Let me have a think on it, and we'll carry on, and we'll see. But yeah, it's usually malaria. And look, some of our strains of malaria can kill you, but if you catch them in time, you'll be fine. I've had malaria before. It's a ridiculously uncomfortable couple of weeks. Ooh, yes, let's go to James. James's brain functions on a higher level than mine on most days, so I think let's go over to him and see if he knows about parasites that he would have to be careful of.
I don't think it functions on a higher level than anybody's, frankly. I missed the last bit about the parasites. What was that last bit? Can't think of any more whatties? Tapeworm, malaria, and bilharzia. Well, I'm trying to think if I can think of specific parasites that might have a go at you. Well, obviously you get the ones that are the rickettsia that are in ticks. But the big thing is that like I was saying, they are on your skin, they are in every part of your intestine. There are probably various different kinds of nematodes and other kinds of worms knocking the flukes and that sort of thing, knocking through your body, using bits and pieces of your energy. And the most interesting thing about this, and I've mentioned this before, is that from a human perspective, you think that when you look at a prospective partner, you have absolutely no idea what parasites and disease they have resistance to. But in actual fact, evolution has endowed you with a superb mechanism for telling whether a prospective partner has good resistance to diseases that you don't have good resistance to. And that is your sense of smell. And a lot of people, me especially, because I have an extremely sensitive nose, find that some people just don't smell right. Not bad, just not right. When you smell, inhale, oh sorry, apparently we're losing signal. When you do that and it smells good, what your body is telling you apparently is that this person that you are smelling has got a different suite of disease resistance from the suite that you have, and therefore your children will have a disease resistance to both suites of disease and parasites. And somebody who doesn't smell quite right to you probably has a similar sort of disease resistance to your own, in which case there's no real advantage to the disease resistance that your offspring might have. Is that not a fascinating subject? I think it is fascinating indeed. Can we move now? Okay. We can try and move. We have got the drone. There's any signal for it at the moment. No, we seem to be okay for signal. And drone is back. How marvellous. There we are. You can see us driving along the southern boundary there. I am waving at you. Sebastian is not going to wave at you because he needs all his hands to operate the camera and the drone and then stay on the vehicle as I drive. We talk a lot about the boundary roads. We talk a lot about Gowrie Main Road, which is our southern boundary. This is Gowrie Main Road. If you are a new viewer, this is you can see it's dead straight, and it is what we'd call a cut line between different reserves within the greater reserve. To our right hand side, so I guess now to your left hand side, is Djuma, and to your right hand side is Little Gowrie, where lots of the leopards go. And then if you look way behind us there, Chitwa is behind, and to your right hand side, so that's south to your right, you're looking due south to the right, and due north to the left, and so you are in fact looking due east. We are heading west, so I hope that gives you some kind of perspective of where we are. That's marvellous. I think that's fantastic. Alright, we're now going to go back to Noel, who is going to say goodbye on behalf of all of us.
I am going to say goodbye on behalf of all of you, but not quite yet. We still have a few kudu who are meandering about and then disappearing into the bush. Of course, they're disappearing into the bush, as kudu do. such exquisite animals that blend in so well. I'm going to see if I roll a little bit forward, if that will help. And I think it might just do. There'll still be some branches, but there will still be a kudu. So it's been quite a good morning. We've done trees, we've done birds, we've talked about parasites and worms, lions, leopards. I believe there's some elephants up in the Mara as well. You guys really do, as viewers, get such a great overall impression of two beautiful habitats and, well, ecosystems with multiple habitats within them whenever we do drive. I mean, the amount of content that we get on, say, a single game drive with all the different feeds boggles my mind sometimes. It's really a great way to start your day or end your day, depending on where you are in the world. So I'm hoping this afternoon all of you will join us again, and I hope you have as great questions as you did today. The parasite questions and the conservation questions and everything that's been mixed in has been fabulous. Oh, and I almost forgot about our little botched lion hunt that happened there. That was also fun. So this afternoon we're definitely going to go try and find the Nkuhumas again. I would probably say we would look for Hosana again as well. I'm not quite sure what the Mara team's goals are, but I would assume maybe cheetahs and lions again, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe they get to go to the hyena den that's up there. That would be absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much from myself and Davi, and from James and Seb and everyone up in the Mara and in FC. Have a really wonderful day. We'll see you tonight.